So there were 2 conquests, but 1 failed conquest, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so this is the Ophel structure. By the way, just if you know anything about what's going on in Israel with archaeology, they have now discovered the palace. It was discovered by the Israeli archaeologist Eilat Mazar in 2005. One of the ways they know it was the Palace of David was all these bullae. Through different generations, you see that this was an administrative center where you had official documents that were being sealed by people who were working for various Judahite kings. So pretty cool. Okay, so we're going to fast forward. Oh yeah, here's my guy, Gamariyahu ben Shaphan. This is his seal. Do you notice anything too about the Hebrew writing? If you know anything about Hebrew, what's the shape of a Hebrew letter today? Okay, they're squared off. And when the Jews came back from Babylon, the way they did their alphabet changed. So this is evidence that this was pre-Babylonian conquest. It's the tilty, really thin Hebrew script. And so this is what we got. Oh, all these guys. I could go on and on, so I won't. All right, so here's our context. We've got the Davidic kingdom, and then Solomon's kingdom expands the Davidic kingdom. Eventually, though, the Judahite kingdom and the Israelite kingdom are contracted, they're divided, and in 722, the northern kingdom of Israel, the people there are taken into captivity, and then a very powerful king comes back. His name is Sennacherib, and Assyria at this time is the greatest empire in the ancient world. It was an empire known for its abject cruelty. We'll see some of the murals depicting the way they treated the conquered, including a practice called impalement, which is just horrific. Okay, so when they come back in 701 to surround this little kingdom, it's serious business. And you can see the size of the Assyrian Empire by this time. It was huge. And according to the book of 2 Kings, when they come in first in approximately 732 BC, the Assyrian Empire invades the northern kingdom of Israel. Then in 722 BC, Israel is defeated, and the last king of Israel, King Hoshea, is taken captive, and a great number of these Israelites are taken into captivity. Now, I've got a little picture here of the seal, another one of these seals, of King Hoshea, or actually not of Hoshea, he's mentioned on the seal of one of his attendants or administrators, a guy named Abdi. Do you notice anything about the seal? The depiction, the dress, the style, what's it look like? Egyptian, okay? Do you remember that the prophets in the Old Testament were upbraiding, they were confronting the kings of Israel and later the Judahite kings for putting their trust in the Egyptians to save them from the northern superpowers, first Assyria and then Babylon, who were coming. And so the prophets speaking in the name of God, saying, don't put your trust in the Egyptians, put your trust in me. Notice the dress. Interesting corroboration of the context that we read about in the Old Testament. Okay, so moving forward now, we get to 701 BC, and the Assyrian Empire returns. Now under a different king, under Sennacherib, and the Bible is very specific. It gives very specific historical information and evidence. And it says here in the 14th year of King Hezekiah, or Hezekiahu, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came up against the fortified cities of Judah and seized them. So the first bit of historical testimony we get about this is that the Assyrians are conquering all the smaller cities around Jerusalem. And in the Assyrian records, we actually have very specific details about this. It tells us that, and this is, you can see this cuneiform prism, it's called. Sometimes it's called the Sennacherib prism. Sometimes it's called the Taylor Prism, named for the British archaeologist who discovered it. And this prism records that in 701 BC, there were 46 Judean cities that were conquered by Sennacherib. So the Bible tells us that the Judean cities were conquered. The Assyrian records affirm that and tell us exactly how many, and even tell us how many people were taken into captivity, 200,150. And there are other Assyrian documents that also record other campaigns of Sennacherib during this time. Now, if you're interested in this, and this was really fun this summer, we had 48 students from, I think Elaine said 11 countries in our summer course, and we did a whole week on the archaeology of the Near East and of the Bible, and we took after I gave this lecture on a Friday, on the Saturday we went to the British Museum to see a lot of this evidence, including the Taylor Prism. And this is the Assyrian room. So if you have ever chance, if you're in London, this is well worth doing. So here's what we know. This is on this Taylor Prism. This is a direct quote from King Sennacherib. He says, "As for Hezekiah, the Judean, who did not submit to my yoke, I surrounded and conquered 46 of his strong-walled towns by leveling with battering rams and by bringing up siege engines. 200,150 people I brought away from them and counted as spoils." And keep your eye on that idea of a siege, because this is part of what was very grim in the ancient world. If a city was conquered, the protective walls of a city were typically battered down by battering rams, and then there are these things called siege engines, which created a ramp up to the top of the walls where the well-armed troops could then come over the walls and conquer the city. And oftentimes cities were put under siege for extended periods of time, and so this was about the worst thing that could happen to you, because cities would be deprived of food and water, and people would resort to drinking their own urine. It was just awful. Okay, nobody wanted to be in a city that was under siege, still less by one that was being put under siege by the greatest military power on the planet at that time, which was the Assyrian Empire. So as Hezekiah, the king of this small little kingdom of Judah, sees this, he takes precautionary measures. Now in the Bible we learn that Hezekiah was one of those few reforming kings in the line of King David. Another one that comes later is Josiah. Hezekiah is his great-great-grandfather, I think, either great or great-great-grandfather. All right, and in the book of 2 Kings there's an extensive accounting of all the things he did to rid the land of idolatry, to restore the Mosaic approach, or the Mosaic commands about worship. So he's very devoted to his God, and he's commended the way the book of 2 Kings writes. His actions are written in the light. He's commended by the text for the way he approaches this. But nevertheless, he comes under. There's an invasion, and there's a siege. And so as he sees the other cities of Jerusalem falling, the text tells us that he does two things, very smart things. First, he secures a water supply by redirecting a spring that was outside the city walls of Jerusalem at that time, the Gihon Spring, and he redirects the water and creates a tunnel that brings the water into the city underground. Anyone ever been to Jerusalem? Anyone walked in the Hezekiah's water tunnel? Okay, let me show a picture of it in a minute. So this is something that's attested in the Bible, and in the 19th century, the British archaeologists discovered this.